So this video is going to be about when we pass away. It is by request, so that's why the tempo might be a little different and it may seem specific at certain points. So when we pass away, when we die, there's a whole lot of ideas, movies, TV shows, and even some pastors make it seem very dramatic, like you're raised up into heaven or you fall down into hell or something like that. The energy, what happens to you is the various parts of yourself, but also your conscious mind. It's much more subtle. It's much less dramatic. We have a lot of fears about death, and there's a lot of people that are afraid of graveyards. But the graveyards that I've been to, when I go there, there is not. It is the fear that the living have that exists there. It is not the fear of the dead. There is an overall sense of tiredness, usually, and there's little kind of reminiscence of joy, of little bits of pain, things like that. But when you die, it's a very, very subtle process. And what gets left behind is very subtle. That's why you don't have a lot of people walking around who can see ghosts or sense energy, because everything's very subtle. When somebody dies, it's a very subtle process. Even if they died in a very depressed state of mind, it doesn't mean that they're dragged down to a lower realm or something like that. It is a subtle and peaceful process, dying is. Even if the conscious mind of the person was in turmoil, the actual experience of it when it happens is very, very mild and calm. And the universe, the gods, spirits, God, source, whatever you want to call it, everything's set up in a way that's much more forgiving than a lot of people think. If you walked upon this earth with care and love in your heart and with little malice, that the earth itself, as being part of the process, beckons you and sends pieces of energy, guardians, to slowly kind of merge your energy back into things and back into, a part of yourself goes to another realm. But you have to be a very bad person to immediately go somewhere bad or have a really bad experience when you die. The vast majority of people, even people who, died in a certain way or weren't the best, it's a very peaceful process. It's a calm process. A lot of the fears that we have about what happens when we die or how the process happens has to do with our own fear of death, rather than that being a realistic description or experience of the actual process itself. Especially if somebody, was nice during life, if they had a lot of problems, if they had any kind of mental issues, the universe, God, that's taken into account. It's not dual. It's not either black and white. It's not either you go to heaven and hell forever. And that energy of that person that's passed, we will see them again in one form or another while we're alive right now, and definitely in the future, in other dimensions, but also in other lives, things like that. But even if somebody doesn't believe in other lives, we eventually see each other again, and we can feel those who have passed even here after they pass. There's a lot of taboo around certain ways that people die. And a lot of it is around, our experience of those emotions ourselves. And that kind of like colors how we think of the experience that somebody has when they die. If somebody dies of suicide, for instance, that's not the universe. God does not sentence you to a worse state of existence than this when that happens. When somebody commits suicide, usually what happens is they'll go to a place of rest for a long time before, their energy goes somewhere else or soul goes somewhere else. But they go to a place of rest. They get, while nobody should do that, and it's still, you'll have to retake on these challenges again you had during life. So it's good to address them and deal with them now. But if somebody does commit suicide, they do go to a place of rest for a time. There's many places of rest, but they're not dragged into some kind of terrible realm that's worse than this. They go to a place of rest where they can, and they're in the womb of the divine mother, is the way what I would call it, and they rest in the womb of the divine mother before they re-manifest somewhere else. Even if somebody commits suicide, they go to a place of rest. It is not a sin against the universe. It is not a sin against God. And as crazy as it sounds, if somebody does that, while they shouldn't do it, we have to respect their decision. It's not just that everybody has the right to, if they just hurt themselves or just end their lives. Everybody has that right. They shouldn't do it. Everybody has that right. But as opposite of how we want to feel as it sounds, any kind of frustration or sad, or any kind of frustration, or you're fed up, have feeling this emotion, why did that person do this to us? Why did they end their life and leave us with the baggage? Because, suicide isn't something that happens to a person, really. It's something that happens to everyone else that person knew and loved them and they loved. But as frustrated as we are with what they did, we have to respect their decision and think of them fondly, because at this point, it's already done. And this frustration, this pain, this agony that we feel, it doesn't do the dead or the living any good. So we have to, as hard as it is, we have to find a way to accept things as they are and not be frustrated with those who, even if somebody did that, who has died. But in other regards, people who have died in other ways, it doesn't help to let frustration linger in our hearts for them, for what they did to us during life, or how their life ended, or, the effect that they had on the world. What I can say is that those who were kind and at least, a large percentage of their life and, cared about people, was nice, actually tried to help people, especially those who helped the dead. Not especially, but, those who helped the dead ushered them on. Like if you picked up trash in a graveyard or something like that, energy is more familiar with you. And helps usher you on. But the universe, God, does not punish in terrible ways like we see in, we hear from certain pastors and we see in certain movies or TV shows. It is a calm and subtle process, dying is. While the brain might be in turmoil, the process itself is calm, and the energies go to places of calm. Those energies don't just require somebody like me to help them along or to, work in graveyards. There's plenty of little guardians in between us and what you might call God that escort people. Kind beings that you wouldn't really know the name of them, wouldn't know who to call upon, but there's a lot of kind beings that work in between places and take people, lead people, and lovingly show people the way forward after life. At any rate, thank you very much for watching. I hope this has been interesting. Feel free to ask any questions in the comment section below, and feel free to, reach out to me and ask more specific questions if you know who I am. At any rate, thank you very much for watching, and I hope all of you have a wonderful day.